Hello, friends. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. And to do that, I review books, movies, plays, podcasts, whatever I want, basically. Literally everything. That's a bit of an exaggeration. But anyway, I heard that Tron Ares was a box office flop and a bit of a disappointment. So I went back and I reviewed Tron from 1984, and then I reviewed Tron Legacy from 2010, and I just finished watching Tron Ares, and I have a lot of things to say. So, firstly, Tron Ares is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. But it is a much better sequel to the first Tron movie than Tron Legacy is. And yet, it somehow manages to be a good sequel to Tron Legacy as well. And although I guess it's a soft reboot of the franchise, it feels more like a sequel, and I imagine that they're going to make another Tron movie in another 10 years. But I think that the one thing to remember is that just because a movie is a box office flop doesn't mean that it's not good. And I think that this is a really great example of that. They put a lot of money into it, and they were expecting it to be a commercial success. Um, but really, no Tron movie has ever been a commercial success at the box office, anyway. The success comes later when these movies get discovered by a very passionate audience. Now, I said earlier that I think that this is a better sequel than Legacy, and frankly, I did not like Tron Legacy. And I didn't like it for many reasons, but it just didn't make sense. Like the main plot was boring, and it wasn't kind of true to the ideas that were presented in the first movie, and it didn't really have any visual connection to the first movie. Like, for example, they go into something called the grid, which Michael Flynn, who's the main character, one of the main characters from the first movie, he designs, and he designed it in 1989, but the graphics look much better. And they really rectified this by having part of the plot actually happen in Flynn's creation, and the graphics look like they would have looked like in 1989. So it does pay some sort of homage to the original movie visually, which makes sense, even though the visuals are clearly based on Tron Legacy. So that's a big improvement. And the other improvement is that the plot of Tron Legacy is basically like an AI turns evil and wants to take over the world. And the thing about Tron, the original, that was so unique was its unique perspective on AI. So we've seen a lot of stories in sci-fi where the AI becomes sort of evil and controls people. This is in the second movie, this trope of AI taking their directive very literally and trying to create peace by killing everyone. We've seen that a lot. But the idea in Tron is that AI would see us as kind of a god, a creator god, would see users as creator gods. So that didn't make a lot of sense, and well, I mean that does make a lot of sense, and in this movie, this iteration of the franchise, you have the same feeling from a character named Ares, and I'll talk about Jared Leto in a moment because he's a controversial figure, but I will talk about him in a moment. So you have like a character who is an AI program who maybe doesn't feel like the users are gods, but he has kind of complicated feelings about them and about himself. And he disobeys his directive, but he disobeys his directive for some kind of greater good. And there is an AI who is just following the program, but you can also see that she's conflicted as well because there's a moment where she feels rain for the first time. And so I like it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it visually the I think that the visual effects so I think that the visual effects in Tron Legacy were not very creative. But the visual effects in this movie are based on the Tron legacy for lack of a better word, and they make it look so much better. And they take all of this wonderful stuff that happened in the grid and they put it in real life. And it looks really, really good. And the disintegration animation looks terrifying, which it should, because in the original one, it looks terrifying and it looks like it's a painful process. And you have these programs that are dying again and again and again, and they remember every time that they've died. And one of the programs named Athena, because they're named after Greek gods, one of the programs named Athena, she murders the former CEO of Dillinger company, which is the rival to Encom in this in this in this movie. And basically, she's like, "You killed." Well, she doesn't say anything because she's dying, but Athena says to her, "You're lucky. We have given countless lives for the grid, and you're only giving one." So you can see that the writing is much stronger here because you have like deeper themes and the plot is more interesting, and visually it tells a much more coherent story. And I think actually, I mean, the thing is, I like this movie a lot better than I liked Tron, even the original one. I think that Tron was sort of like a revolutionary idea, but the execution was very flawed, and Tron Legacy was horrible. But this one I like better, but it's weird because I can't say that I like it better exactly because it wouldn't have existed without those other two. And it clearly needs them to exist, even though I think that it's better. What about Jared Leto or Leto? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name exactly. So, he has been in multiple box office flops, and people are saying, like, oh, why do people keep giving him this chance to be like this big star? And he has a lot of kind of controversial things in his personal life, like there's been some accusations, but as an actor, I think that he's really good. At least in this. In some movies, like Squad, he may have gone a little bit over the top with that, but in this one, he's playing a sort of naive kind of program who co- comes up with this or starts to experience this moral dilemma. And I think he does a really good job. I think that the acting is good. Like Ares as portrayed by Jared Leto is like a nice character. It's an interesting character. It's very unique. I don't think that they're going to make a sequel to this because it lost a lot of money. But I think that Disney is not done with this franchise because I think people are going to like this movie when they start to see it, right? So just remember that just because it flops at the box office doesn't mean that it's bad, and just because you've heard bad things about it doesn't mean that it's actually bad. You have to depend on your own interpretations of it. Yeah, and I think one problem, I'm not sure I mentioned this in my review of Tron Legacy. One problem that I had with that movie is that the programs don't feel they feel like they just are people with personalities stuck in this grid. And a program wouldn't end this weird thing about isometric algorithms or whatever. That was very strange. Didn't make any sense. And I'm not going to go into it now. If you're curious, you can watch the movie, but I wouldn't recommend it. Tron Legacy anyway. Yeah, but like so the programs had too much personality, or like very human personalities. Like Michael Sheen plays this kind of over the top character, and they're like these things that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this movie makes sense, and the acting is good, and the plot makes sense, and the special effects I think are much better than in 2010. And I don't mean like technically they're better, because of course technically they're better. It's been 14 years, but I mean they tell the story better, right? And they give that little kind of feeling of unease and horror at the center of this experience. And the plot makes much more sense. And I think another thing that doesn't happen, which happens in the first two movies, is that they build up like this world that's outside of the grid or outside of the computer programming. So they build up this world, and then it's like this big break between that world and going into the the simulation of the world of Tron. And this movie doesn't do that. It's very fluid, and each part has sort of equal weight to it. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So there is like characters outside of the grid, and there's characters in the grid, and the story outside the grid is the thing that propels the narrative forward. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense like that. And I think I had another thing to say about it, but no, like the plot is good, the acting is good, the special effects are good. Is it the greatest movie I've ever seen? No, but of this franchise, I would say, yeah, it's like an 8 out of 10 for me. Yeah. What do you think, though? Did you like the movie? Did you dislike the movie? Put your thoughts in the comment section. And if you like what I do, please give me a follow if you're listening on Spotify, or a subscribe. And I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of March, which I think is very possible. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.